G'day guys, JB here with the off-season finally upon us and another 82-game season finally out of the way, with no COVID hiccups, with no bubble, a full 82 games. I think it's time that I release formally my 50 greatest NBA players of all time. Some of you will agree, some of you will disagree, some will be surprised by some rankings, some won't be so surprised by some rankings, but I think you'll enjoy it. So sit back, relax, if you can in fact relax listening to lists and the sounds of my voice, and get ready for my 50 greatest NBA players of all time. At number 5, Wilt Chamberlain. Played 1959-60 to 1972-73. Two-time NBA champion, one-time Finals MVP, four-time League MVP, 7-time All-NBA first-team selection, 3-time All-NBA second-team selection, 2-time All-Defensive first-team selection, 13-time All-Star selection, 1-time All-Star MVP, 7-time scoring champion, 11-time rebounding champion, 1-time assist champion, and Rookie of the Year. Wilt finished top 10 in MVP voting 11 times, top 5 in MVP voting 10 times, top 3 in MVP voting 7 times, was a 2-time runner-up MVP winner, and of course a 2-time MVP winner. Now before I get into the stats for Wilt, there are no defensive numbers, there are no turnover numbers, and he did not play with a three-point line. In the regular season, he played 1,045 games, averaging 45.8 minutes per game. He averaged 30.1 points per game, 22.9 rebounds per game, and 4.4 assists per game. He shot 54% from the field and 51.1% from the free throw line. In the playoffs, he played 160 games, averaging 47.2 minutes per game. He averaged 22.5 points per game, 24.5 rebounds per game, and 4.2 assists per game. He shot 52.2% from the field and 46.5% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 35 games, averaging 47.3 minutes per game. He averaged 18.6 points per game, 24.6 rebounds per game, and 3.8 assists per game. He shot 55.9% from the field and 37.5% from the free throw line. Bigger, faster, stronger. The main argument used when comparing the modern game to previous eras, which is fine if you forget that the greatest athlete and greatest stat-producing player in NBA history played from 1959 to 1973. Wilt Chamberlain was a freak of nature, standing 7'1", weighing anywhere between 250 and 315 pounds during his playing career, and possessing every athletic ability known to man. The Big Dipper terrorised the NBA for the better part of 15 seasons, with all of this combined with an ability to do everything on the court besides hit regular free throws. His statistical peaks are unmatched, his passing contends as the best of any big man ever, and with what is known defensively of his game, a shot-blocking monolith may be the best description available. Chamberlain produced as an individual to levels that may never be seen again and helped lead two of the greatest single-season teams of all time. Let's look at the basics of Wilt's stats. Wilt retired the league's all-time leader in career points, points per game, and scoring titles. He remains 7th in career points and 2nd in points per game and scoring titles, both to Michael Jordan. His rebounding numbers are mythical, retiring and remaining the all-time leader in career rebounds, rebounds per game, and rebounding titles, and 2nd all-time in career playoff rebounds and rebounds per game to Bill Russell. Unless a replica player steps into the NBA, no one, and I mean no one, will join him in the 30,000 point, 20,000 rebound club. Passing wasn't always at the top of his priority list, but he remains the only centre in league history to win an assist title, and thus the only player in league history to have led the league in scoring, rebounding, and passing at some stage in their career. Speaking of stuffing the stat sheet, he retired 2nd in career triple-doubles, 1st in playoff triple-doubles, and remains top 10 for both. This is without any official defensive numbers, which would have likely contained large block numbers. His durability is legendary. He retired the all-time leader in minutes and minutes per game in both the regular season and playoffs, and still sits inside the top 10 in total minutes for both the regular season and playoffs. To cap off all the numbers, his advanced metrics in win shares, both total offensive and defensive, were first and second all-time when he retired, and remained third and fifth all-time, while his PER saw him third all-time at retirement and still has him inside the top 10. And that's just from the stat sheet. With reference to the Wikipedia page titled List of Career Achievements by Wilt Chamberlain, there are a total of 115 unique facts or records to Chamberlain's name that he either owns outright by himself or shares with another player. This doesn't include the facts or records he may be second, top 3 or top 5 in. At the time of this video being published, it has been 49 years, 5 months and 4 days since Chamberlain walked off the floor in the 1973 finals. I could read off all the facts and records, but they are a video unto themselves. Chamberlain doesn't just hold these facts and records, he has a white-knuckle grip with both hands on them. And remember, there would likely be a plethora of defensive records available too, had defensive numbers been recorded during his career and not the season after he retired. Off the stat sheet and out of the pages of the record book, there is just one thing that defined Wilt Chamberlain: Bill Russell. The most defining head-to-head battle in league history, Chamberlain and Russell met 94 times in the regular season and 49 times in the playoffs, with Chamberlain coming off second best in both. However, it should be noted that while Chamberlain and his team often suffered defeat, Wilt himself was able to still produce like the basketball god he is. In his battles against Russell, Chamberlain averaged 29.9 points, 28.1 rebounds, and 3.8 assists per game in the regular season, and 25.7 points, 28 rebounds, and 4.1 assists per game in the playoffs. No one player could stop Wilt Chamberlain. They could merely only hope to contain him, even the greatest defender of all time. While Wilt was a monster of an individual and it proved at times to be the crux of his lack of success, Chamberlain's ability to play a team game when he set his mind to it was arguably the best that the game has ever seen. 1966-67 saw Chamberlain win the second of 3 straight MVP awards, a total of 4 MVP awards for his career, and lead Philadelphia to a then all-time record of 68-13 en route to his first championship. This was the first season Chamberlain did not lead the league in scoring, instead opting for season averages of a rounded 24 points, 24 rebounds and 8 assists a game in the regular season, 22 points, 29 rebounds and 9 assists a game in the playoffs, and 18 points, 29 rebounds and 7 assists in the NBA Finals. The following season, Wilt would back up his efforts by anchoring Philadelphia to the best defensive team in the league, and the only season that Celtic team didn't do so in Bill Russell's career. Even in Los Angeles in his latter years, Chamberlain cut down his scoring, remained the league's perennial rebounder and a big man defender, and a crucial facilitator as the 1971-72 Lakers broke his 76ers single-season record and set the all-time win streak record of 33 wins en route to a second championship. There is no doubt Wilt's lows personally and as a team were low, but to the time of his retirement, and perhaps still to this day, it can be argued no one had or has seen the heights he scaled. Wilt Chamberlain is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, was selected to the NBA's 35th, 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 13 is retired by Golden State, Philadelphia and Los Angeles. At number 4, LeBron James. Active since 2003-04. 4-time NBA champion, 4-time Finals MVP, 4-time League MVP, 13-time All-NBA First Team selection, 3-time All-NBA Second Team selection, 2-time All-NBA Third Team selection, 5-time All-Defensive First Team selection, 1-time All-Defensive Second Team selection, 18-time All-Star selection, 3-time All-Star Game MVP, 1-time scoring champion, 1-time assist champion, Rookie of the Year, and All-Rookie First Team selection. LeBron has finished top 10 in MVP voting 17 times, top 5 in MVP voting 14 times, top 3 in MVP voting 11 times. He is a 4-time runner-up MVP vote getter, as well as a 4-time MVP winner. In the regular season, he has played 1,366 games, averaging 38.2 minutes per game. He averages 27.1 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game, 7.4 assists per game, 1.6 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game, on 3.5 turnovers per game. He shoots 50.5% from the field, 34.6% from deep, and 73.4% from the free throw line. In the playoffs, he's played 266 games, averaging 41.5 minutes per game. He averages 28.7 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, 7.2 assists per game, 1.7 steals per game, 0.9 blocks per game, on 3.7 turnovers per game. He shoots 49.5% from the field, 33.7% from deep, and 74% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he has played 55 games, averaging 42.5 minutes per game. He averages 28.4 points per game, 10.2 rebounds per game, 7.8 assists per game, 1.7 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game, and 3.9 turnovers per game. He shoots 48.4% from the field, 35.2% from deep, and 73.1% from the free throw line. The greatest high school to pro player of all time, the greatest small forward of all time, and the most statistically consistent player of all time. Even before he entered the league, LeBron James suffered through the comparisons to Michael Jordan as a pro, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Wilt Chamberlain as a high school phenom, and then delivered an MVP run over 5 years that was only comparable to Bill Russell. Make no mistake, the kid from Akron has more than earned his right to be placed on the Mount Rushmore of NBA history. LeBron has as many fans as he does detractors, most of which are based on his unbelievable generosity off the floor and his full throttle acceleration and enforcement of the player in power movement on the floor. But it can't be denied that his personal success in the NBA, combined with the success he has brought to each franchise he has played for, has seen him excel beyond expectations and set the bar for excellence among his peers. With LeBron entering his 20th season, his rankings among the league's all-time leaderboards stack up against every player to have put on an NBA uniform. If he remains healthy and continues to play at around his career average, he will become the all-time leading point scorer in both the regular season and playoffs sometime near the All-Star break. This will make LeBron just the fourth significant player ever to do this behind George Mikan, Bob Pettit, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He sits 5th all-time in the regular season and 6th all-time in the playoffs in points per game. He sits 6th all-time in playoff rebounds. He sits 7th in the regular season and 2nd in the playoffs in assists, making him the only player in league history with 30,000 points, rebounds, and assists. He is 10th all-time in the regular season and 1st all-time in the playoffs in steals. He sits 10th all-time in the playoffs in block shots. Add to that his advanced metrics of PER ranking 2nd all-time in the regular season and 3rd all-time in the playoffs, and his overall win shares ranking 2nd all-time in the regular season and 1st all-time in the playoffs, and he passes any statistical measurement with flying colours. James's career has come in 4 different phases, but throughout it all, it shows of a player who has remained a premier athlete for all of his career and a player whose basketball IQ has allowed him to thrive the longer it has gone. Young LeBron, as the number 1 pick for Cleveland in 2003, was an athletic force that, no matter his position on the court, had the ability to suddenly explode and attack the rim whether he was guarded or open. As he seasoned as an NBA player, he delivered deep playoff runs and garnered accolades as not only one of the league's best all-around players, but the best player in the world. His stocks had risen to a level that had been anticipated before his debut, but he was about to surpass them as his desire for championship success grew. His move to Miami in the off-season of 2010 may be the most controversial and influential in the history of the NBA, but it garnered results. While the biggest black mark of his career came in his first season as a member of the Heat, when he delivered what many suggest is the worst NBA Finals performance by a leader of all time in 2011 against the Dallas Mavericks, there is no doubt LeBron's level of play outside this series showed him as the best player in the world. 2012 and 2013 saw James lead Miami to back-to-back championships while collecting back-to-back MVP and Finals MVP awards. Only Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has managed back-to-back MVP awards for 2 different teams, and only Michael Jordan has ever won back-to-back championships, MVPs, and Finals MVPs. By the end of 2013, LeBron had garnered a 5-year zenith which saw him with 5 All-NBA and 5 All-Defensive First-Team selections and 4 MVP awards. Only Bill Russell has managed to win 4 MVP awards in 5 seasons. At the end of the 2014 season, following a 4th straight NBA Finals appearance, LeBron returned home to the Cavaliers with a plan to bring a championship to Cleveland. While 2015 was not the year, 2016 proved to be the jewel in LeBron's crown. Leading Cleveland back from 3-1 down against Golden State, LeBron would deliver a championship to his home team. A third Finals MVP, as the only player ever to lead all players in all 5 major categories, elevated LeBron into the stratosphere of basketball mythology. While another 2 Finals appearances proved unsuccessful, James had done what he set out to do. He won Cleveland a championship. In the off-season of 2018, LeBron would sign on to play with the Los Angeles Lakers, joining a who's who of NBA legends to play for the purple and gold. This has seen LeBron become the smartest version of himself as a player, using his IQ to still impact games to an all-NBA level. This has been especially important as injuries have begun to rear their head for a man who has seemingly been indestructible until his late 30s. While the ability to help cultivate a winning team on the floor and gather talent off the floor to play alongside of him, James led the Lakers to their first title in a decade in 2020, becoming just the second player ever to win 4 Finals MVP awards with his efforts against the Heat. While a lack of success and injuries over the last 2 seasons have seen James play more of a conservative brand of ball, there is no denying the impact he continues to have on the game. LeBron James was selected to the NBA's 75th anniversary team, will likely have his number retired at all 3 franchises he has played for, and will be a first ballot member of the Basketball Hall of Fame when he is eligible. At number 3, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Played 1969-70 to 1988-89. Kareem was a 6-time NBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP, 6-time League MVP, 10-time All-NBA first-team selection, 5-time All-NBA second-team selection, 5-time All-Defensive first-team selection, 6-time All-Defensive second-team selection, 19-time All-Star selection, 2-time scoring champion, 1-time rebounding champion, 4-time blocks champion, Rookie of the Year, and All-Rookie first-team selection. Kareem finished top 10 in MVP voting 17 times, top 5 in MVP voting 15 times, top 3 in MVP voting 9 times, is a 1-time runner-up MVP winner, and of course a 6-time and a record 6-time MVP winner. In the regular season, he played 1,560 games, averaging 36.8 minutes per game. He averaged 24.6 points per game, 11.2 rebounds per game, 3.6 assists per game, 0.9 steals per game, 2.6 blocks per game, and 2.7 turnovers per game. He shot 55.9% from the field, he shot 5.6% from deep with very limited attempts, and 72.1% from the free throw line. In the NBA playoffs, he played 237 games, averaging 37.3 minutes per game. He averaged 24.3 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game, 3.2 assists per game, 1 steal per game, 2.4 blocks per game, and 2.6 turnovers per game. He shot 53.3% from the field. He did not make any of the limited 3-point shots he took in the playoffs, and shot 74% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 56 games, averaging 37.2 minutes per game. He averaged 23.5 points per game, 9.1 rebounds per game, 3.2 assists per game, 0.9 steals per game, 2.2 blocks per game, and 2.7 turnovers per game. He shot 52.3% from the field. Again, he did not make any of the limited 3-point attempts he had in the finals, and shot 70% from the free throw line. If this list was compiled in order of who the greatest basketball player of all time was, then this man right here would sit at the head of the table. If you include high school and college, no player to ever pick up a basketball has dominated and played the game better than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Even though this is an NBA list only, Kareem still makes the podium. Kareem dominated the 1970s as an individual better than any other player has dominated another decade. A two-way nightmare, Kareem possessed the most unstoppable offensive move in the history of basketball in the skyhook en route to the current all-time scoring record, all while retiring as the all-time leader in block shots and the only man to ever win 6 MVP awards. Kareem wasn't exuberant in his success, nor did he wallow in self-deprecation in defeat. He was simply dominant for over a quarter of a century on the hardwood and remains the least talked about player as far as who the greatest NBA player of all time is. As mentioned previously, no player in history has won more league MVP awards than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Along with those 6 MVP awards, Kareem remains the only man to win 3 MVP awards with 2 franchises and is one of 2 players to win back-to-back MVP awards for 2 different teams. Kareem retired the all-time leader in points both in the regular season and playoffs, and remains the all-time leader in the regular season and is now 3rd in the playoffs. He retired and remains 3rd all-time in regular season rebounds, retired 5th in playoff rebounds, and remains inside the top 5. He retired the all-time leader in both regular season and playoff blocks, and still sits inside the top 3 for both. It should be noted that Kareem's blocks weren't recorded until his 5th season, and would likely sit atop both lists had that happened. He still remains the all-time leader in career win shares in the regular season, and remains inside the top 5 for career win shares in the playoffs. Raw numbers and advanced metrics back up the eye test. Kareem was a monster. Kareem entered the league as Lou Alcindor, and after the greatest college career of all time, had everyone scared that he would impact the game much the same as 3 legendary centres before him: George Mikan, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. Was Kareem going to be too good for the game? While the rule changes that affected him in college weren't transferred to the pros, there was no question by the end of the 1970s that Kareem was the most dominant force of the decade. Bill Russell before him owned the league as the leader of the greatest dynasty in sports history, while Kareem owned the league with the skyhook, a move that no player had mastered to his level before him and that no player dared try to master since. Following a dominant rookie season, Kareem helped lead Milwaukee to one of the best single seasons of all time, en route to the first of 6 MVP awards and 6 championships. Backing up one MVP with another, the Bucks were a contender right through to the end of the 1974 finals, where they went down in 7 games. By this point, Kareem had won 3 MVP awards, finished runner-up another time, won a championship, come second once, and led the league in scoring twice. For some perspective, he could have retired at this point with a career that was as strong as Moses Malone's. It is by far the best opening 5 years of any player in league history as an individual. After one more season in Milwaukee, Kareem made his way to LA, where he continued to produce a level of individual dominance that saw his teams into the playoffs or saw him garner recognition despite their shortcomings. Kareem remains the only player in league history to win the MVP award on a team that missed the playoffs. This is probably the best example of his dominance of the game. Another back-to-back performance in 1976-77 saw him equal Bill Russell for career MVP awards before setting the record in 1979-80. There is always discussion around player A or player B having deserved more MVP awards than they won, but the fact of the matter is that you still have to win them no matter what, and that is what Kareem did. He was methodical and disciplined, and didn't care to please anyone but his team and himself. With Magic Johnson joining the Lakers in 1979, Kareem had not only a new lease on life, but a player that could sit alongside him to win championships. And win they did, collecting 5 championships across the 1980s in the 3rd most dominant decade of team play in history. Kareem started his career as a dominant individual and now was part of a dominant team. Had Kareem not sprained his ankle in Game 5 of the 1980 finals, he very likely wins finals MVP of the series. Instead, it went to Magic for his closeout efforts in Game 6 and would again be awarded to Johnson in 1982. However, after Johnson's shortcomings in 1983-84 and Kareem's own mishaps against key centres of the era, many were wondering could the Lakers get it done with an ageing captain. The answer? Kareem turned back the clock in the 1985 finals to collect his 2nd finals MVP award, for another final peak year, 1985-86, as the All-NBA first-team centre. Kareem then stepped back from Magic to lead the team for the remainder of his career, collecting his 5th and 6th championships in a lesser role that still allowed the team to thrive. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, was selected to the NBA's 35th, 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 33 is retired by Milwaukee and Los Angeles. At number 2, Bill Russell. Played 1956-57 to 1968-69. An 11-time NBA champion, 5-time league MVP, 3-time All-NBA first-team selection, 8-time All-NBA second-team selection, 1-time All-Defensive first-team selection, 12-time All-Star selection, 1-time All-Star MVP, and 4-time rebounding champion. Russell finished top 10 in MVP voting 12 times, top 5 in MVP voting 11 times, top 3 in MVP voting 9 times, was a 2-time runner-up MVP vote getter, and of course a 5-time MVP winner. Of course, before we go through Bill Russell's stats, it must be known that defensive numbers, turnover numbers, and three-point shooting numbers do not exist in his career. In the regular season, he played 963 games, averaging 42.3 minutes per game. He averaged 15.1 points per game, 22.5 rebounds per game, and 4.3 assists per game. He shot 44% from the field and 56.1% from the stripe. In the playoffs, he played 165 games, averaging 45.4 minutes per game. He averaged 16.2 points per game, 24.9 rebounds per game, and 4.7 assists per game. He shot 43% from the field and 60.3% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 70 games, averaging 45.4 minutes per game. He averaged 16.4 points per game, 24.5 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game, shot 45.6% from the field and 61% from the free throw line. The greatest centre, defender, teammate and winner in NBA history, Bill Russell. Do you consider the greatest player of all time to be one who did nothing but win, was so dominant in the game that there has never been another player like them, and garnered immense individual accolades and accomplishments regardless of the result? Then Bill Russell is your guy. Had Russell dominated on both sides of the ball rather than just the defensive end, then there is no question that he wouldn't rank second on this list. But in mastering the art of defense and allowing his teammates to flourish without disrupting the offense, Russell achieved everything there is to achieve in the NBA. The only leaderboards you will find Bill Russell on are those for rebounds. He sits second all-time in regular season rebounds, as well as rebounds per game, and sits first all-time in playoff rebounds, as well as rebounds per game. However, it is on the defensive end and his advanced metrics and facts that are overwhelming. Russell led the league a record 11 times in defensive win shares and remains the all-time leader in the regular season and playoffs in defensive win shares. He sits inside the top 10 all-time for playoff win shares and inside the top 20 all-time for regular season win shares. What makes these phenomenal for Russell is that his 133.6 career defensive win shares came in 963 games, compared to second place Tim Duncan, whose 106.3 defensive win shares came in 1,392 games. That's a lead for Russell of 27.3 win shares in 429 less games. For more perspective on this, Russell could have retired at the end of the Celtics' 8 consecutive championships in 1966 and still be the all-time leader in defensive win shares at 106.7. To this point, Russell would have played only 727 games, some 665 less than Tim Duncan. Here are the players on my list that have less total career win shares than Russell has defensive win shares. John Havlicek, Steve Nash, Rick Barry, Patrick Ewing, Scottie Pippen, Elvin Hayes, Dwayne Wade, Steph Curry, Dominique Wilkins, George Gervin, Walt Frazier, George Mikan and Elgin Baylor. Russell's defensive win shares are higher than the following players' offensive win shares that feature in my top 20. Jerry West, Charles Barkley, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Moses Malone, Magic Johnson, Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Bob Pettit, Steph Curry, Larry Bird, and Hakeem Olajuwon. Russell is head and shoulders above anyone in league history as a defender. It can be argued that his dominance on the defensive end is greater than any player on the offensive end. He may not have had his steals and blocks recorded, had a Defensive Player of the Year award to win, or had all defensive teams to be selected to, but it all stacks up. Russell's defensive dominance and ability to elevate his teammates saw him win 5 MVP awards. Many cite that he was not the best individual player of his era compared to Wilt Chamberlain. From a one-on-one standpoint, that is factually correct. In an all-time tournament of one-on-one play, Chamberlain likely comes out the victor. However, pro basketball is a team game, and the Most Valuable Player award is awarded to the player who has the most value to his team and their success. Chamberlain won 4 MVP awards, just one of 5 players to do so. Russell won 5 MVP awards, just one of 3 players to do so. And until the early 1980s, the players voted on the MVP award. So despite the general train of thought that Russell was a product of a good team and that he had a plethora of stars around him, the league itself still saw Russell as the reason for their success. Russell was the catalyst, the driving force, and leader of all 11 Celtic championships from 1956-57 to 1968-69. The Celtics were the best defensive team in every season of his career besides 1967-68, and won in every season of his career besides 1957-58 and 1966-67. Over his career, Boston won 716 of a possible 1,025 regular season games. That's a winning percentage of 69.9%. Russell missed a total of 52 regular season games in his career, to which point Boston went 26-26. Now, if you don't include the first 24 games he missed in his rookie year, that record changes to 10-18, and if you narrow that down during the 8-peat, it drops to a record of 6-12. Russell's difference on the team changes from 57 wins to 27 wins. This is no coincidence. Even more proof of his impact on the team is the fact that only 2 championship teams in NBA history have missed the playoffs the following season. The Chicago Bulls after 1997-98 and the Boston Celtics after 1968-69. Everyone knows that the Chicago Bulls blew up their playing roster after their final championship run. But Bill Russell was the only starter from the Boston Celtics to retire. Russell's impact spread beyond the hardwood. His civil rights activism throughout and after his career helped revolutionise standards and conditions in and out of the playing arena for athletes of all sports. Russell didn't identify as a basketball player. He identified as a man. Basketball was his occupation, but his occupation provided him with a platform for him to stand up for those in minorities that were seeking, desired, and deserved equality in all facets. In his career, he refused privileges given to him purely because he was an athlete or a member of the Celtics. In his life, he marched with Dr. Martin Luther King, stood beside Muhammad Ali, refused to be honoured ahead of those he thought deserved recognition first, and remained solid with modern athletes as they continued to progress along the road he paved. The greatest champion inside and outside of the playing arena in team sports history passed away on July 31st, 2022. We will never see another player like him. Bill Russell is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, was selected to the NBA's 25th, 35th, 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 6 is retired league-wide by the NBA. At number 1, Michael Jordan. Played 1984-85 to 2002-03. MJ was a 6-time champion, 6-time Finals MVP, 5-time League MVP, 1-time Defensive Player of the Year, 10-time All-NBA First-Team Selection, 1-time All-NBA Second-Team Selection, 9-time All-Defensive First-Team Selection, 14-time All-Star Selection, 3-time All-Star Game MVP, 10-time Scoring Champion, 3-time Steals Champion, Rookie of the Year, and All-Rookie First-Team Selection. Jordan finished top 10 in MVP voting 11 times, top 3 in MVP voting 9 times, was a 3-time runner-up MVP vote getter, and of course a 5-time MVP winner. In the regular season, he played 1,072 games, averaging 38.3 minutes per game. He averaged 30.1 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, 5.3 assists per game, 2.3 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game, and 2.7 turnovers per game. He shot 49.7% from the field, 32.7% from deep, and 83.5% from the free throw line. In the playoffs, he played 179 games, averaging 41.8 minutes per game. He averaged 33.4 points per game, 6.4 rebounds per game, 5.7 assists per game, 2.1 steals per game, 0.9 blocks per game, and 3.1 turnovers per game. He shot 48.7% from the field, 33.2% from deep, and 82.8% from the stripe. In the NBA Finals, he played 35 games, averaging 43 minutes per game. He averaged 33.6 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game, 1.8 steals per game, 0.7 blocks per game, and 2.8 turnovers per game. He shot 48.1% from the field, 36.8% from deep, and 80.6% from the free throw line. Michael Jordan is the greatest NBA player of all time. No player has ever combined elite level offensive and defensive play to an almost equal footing or elite levels of personal achievement with elite levels of team success. These 4 factors give you a level of individual superiority across the league and a run of dominance leading a team in a decade that combines with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Russell. MJ had a career of 4 acts, 3 of them Hall of Fame worthy, 2 of them standing on the shoulders of giants as a guard, and 1 each of a player dominating on athletics and the other on IQ and basketball savvy. MJ retired 3rd all-time in regular season points and 1st all-time in playoff points. He remains top 5 in the regular season and 2nd in the playoffs. He remains the all-time points per game leader in both the regular season and playoffs. His 10 scoring titles remain a record, with his 7 straight equal to Wilt Chamberlain. He retired 2nd all-time in the regular season and playoffs in steals and remains 3rd in both. His steals per game numbers saw him retire 4th all-time in both the regular season and playoffs, but now sits 3rd after Allen Iverson's numbers dropped by the end of his career. Shot blocking proved key for Jordan in his career as well, retiring the all-time leader in blocks by a guard in the regular season and playoffs, and now sits 2nd behind Dwayne Wade in both. As a two-way player, Jordan stands alone. In his 11 full seasons as a Chicago Bull, MJ led the league in total points every season, won 10 scoring titles, and delivered 9 all-defensive first-team selections. For some perspective, only Jerry West once and Kobe Bryant twice have led the league in scoring and made the all-defensive first team in the same season. Jordan is the only man with 3 seasons finishing top 3 in MVP voting, Defensive Player of the Year voting, and the scoring title, and the only player with multiple 200 steal, 100 block seasons. MJ Phase 1, energetic and athletic freak. Jordan won Rookie of the Year with the same production of MVP Kobe Bryant in 2007-8. Injury nearly ended his career in his 1985-86 season before returning to score a playoff record 63 points against the Boston Celtics and average over 43 points a game for the series. Jordan's zenith on both ends of the floor came between 1986-87 and 1988-89. 1986-87 saw Jordan become the only player besides Wilt Chamberlain to score 3,000 points in a season, set the record for the most points scored in a 16-foot lane with 37.1 a game, whilst recording his first 200 steal, 100 block season. 1986-87 saw Jordan post the most complete season of all time. Scoring champion, steals leader, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, All-Star, All-Star MVP, All-NBA and All-Defensive first-team selections. Jordan averaged 35 points a game while posting his second 200 steal, 100 block season. Finally, in 1988-89, Jordan played a large portion of the season at point guard and delivered averages of 32.5 points, 8 rebounds and 8 assists a game. Had MJ retired before the 1990s, he would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. MJ Phase 2, individual into a champion Jordan. 1989-90 saw Jordan and the Bulls fall 1 game short of the NBA Finals. This would be the second last time that MJ in his Bulls career would not see championship success. In Chicago's first three-peat from 1990-91 to the end of 1992-93, MJ would play the point guard better than Magic Johnson in the 1991 Finals, proved to be the best shooting guard in the league against Clyde Drexler in the 1992 Finals, and pour in an NBA Finals record 41 points per game against league MVP Charles Barkley in 1993. Jordan during this time collected 3 championships as the Finals MVP of each series, won back-to-back MVP awards, and made 3 All-Star, All-NBA and All-Defensive first teams. Jordan retired before the 1993-94 season following the death of his father and was widely considered one of, if not the greatest player ever. MJ Phase 3, smarter, not harder, champion Jordan. Unretiring in March of the 1994-95 season, Jordan had to readjust to the NBA. Eliminated in the second round by the Orlando Magic, MJ returned in 1995-96 with a vengeance, and by the end of 1997-98 proved to be the catalyst of a floundering offense. Another 3 seasons, another 3 consecutive championships as Finals MVP. 1995-96 helped cement the Chicago Bulls' legacy as the best single-season team of all time. 1996-97 saw him avenge his MVP loss to Karl Malone, and 1997-98 cemented his legacy with an MVP season and what many saw as the perfect ending to a career. Like his previous three-peat, MJ, along with championships and Finals MVPs, collected 2 more regular season MVP awards, as well as 3 straight All-Star, All-NBA and All-Defensive first teams. MJ Phase 4. Smarter, not harder, veteran Jordan. Michael retired for the second time following 1997-98, returning for 2 All-Star seasons for Washington in 2001-2 and 2002-3, aged 39 and 40. While he didn't obtain the success he had in Chicago, he fed a competitive fire that he was never able to extinguish. Many summarise Jordan's career with 6-0 in the finals, but it isn't the finals record that makes the case. It's the fact that he was never outplayed or even questioned as being outplayed on the biggest stage the game has to offer. And when you combine that factor with his elite level of play on both ends of the floor and an ability to have his team rise to the occasion, you have a hard time going beyond him as the best player to play the game. Michael Jordan is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, was selected to both the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 23 is retired by Chicago and Miami.